Greetings, empowered investors. I hope you are doing well. I'm coming to you today from Scottsdale, Arizona, where it is way too hot and it's going to get hotter. It is amazing to me how this place has such an attraction for so many people. When you look at it, you think, like, what is so great about it? What makes it great is the community and the people. It's really one of the best places for that, in my opinion. Although there are others, of course. Okay, I want to remind you to always join our Wednesday Masterclasses. You can always register for those at jasonhartman.com/Wednesday. We really put a lot of effort into them, and people tell us they are getting a ton of value out of them. They're totally free. Join us the second Wednesday of every month, jasonhartman.com/Wednesday, just for future reference to keep that and save the date for the second Wednesday of every month for those masterclasses. Noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. All right, today I want to go back to the idea of compared to what? It is such a fundamental question. It is the most important question in life. You know, I say that a lot. And here are a couple of other examples of compared to what. So we have all of these doomers out there who keep talking about the end of the world and the crash of the economy and all of this stuff. And, you know, really an optimist. You know, I used to be very seduced by this stuff. And, you know, I started a whole show on it, the Holistic Survival Show, where I interviewed over 250 people. Those shows are all still up. You can listen to them on any podcast platform, the Holistic Survival Show with Jason Hartman. You know, there is a place for that. There definitely is a place for that. And it's just responsible to be prepared for things. But don't fall into the trap of being seduced into this negative doomer thinking, because it is just wrong, time after time after time. And we look at all of this incredible innovation going on in our world, all of these new technologies that just blow our minds. And it is truly an amazing time to be alive. Definitely not perfect, but amazing nonetheless. And, you know, if you look back on history, have you ever looked at one of these books? I have one. It's in storage somewhere, but I do have one of these books that's like 100 years of headlines, the front page of, I don't know, the New York Times, maybe, I can't remember, or the LA Times. And it's like 100 years of it. And you look back and you read these old headlines and you think, you know, people thought all of these doomer things way back then, with all of these different things happening. And, you know, probably in the past, they had a much greater right to think of this stuff and to think of all the doom and the negativity than we do today. I mean, world wars, the Spanish flu, famine, I mean, most of the world living in absolute abject poverty. It is so much better today in so many ways. Now, here's an example of it. Scientists say we built the world's smallest violin. Yeah, the world's smallest violin. It's not what you think. This is something I haven't talked about much, although I have been following it for at least 25 years, and that is technology. You know, we talk a lot and think a lot about AI and biotechnology and all of these other things, 3D printing, whatever, right? But nanotechnology is amazing. I mean, it's just incredible. How small is the world's smallest violin that was built, right? You can't even see the violin, it's so small. You'd have to be looking with an incredible microscope to see this violin. It is 35 microns long and 13 microns wide. How big is a micron, you ask? Well, a micron is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. In other words, the whole violin would fit inside a human hair. Yeah, really. It's an actual violin. Yeah, I mean, Stradivarius would be blown away, right? Stradivarius couldn't play this or make this violin, right? A couple hundred years ago. It is mind-boggling. And just think of the incredible applications, right? We are soon going to be, I mean, they can already do this, but it's not used in any way except for like monitoring, so far as I know, but with medicine, okay? You know, where you swallow a little tiny pill and it can go in and fix your body, right? I mean, all of these amazing things. probes that will go into interstellar space that are the size of maybe a bullet, right? Instead of a probe or a satellite being, a large thing. I mean, think back to the 70s when they had the Viking missions to Mars, right? They had these two landers, the Viking landers, and they landed on Mars and they scooped up and sampled and analyzed the soil. They didn't return with it, of course, that's much more expensive. But these were giant, they were like the size of a car, okay? Think of how inexpensive it is if you can make an entire space probe that would do all kinds of amazing things that is the size of like a bullet, right? I mean, it's just incredible. The incredible things with nanotechnology are amazing. And there's so many other amazing technologies. This is just one of many. The article says, though creating the world's smallest violin may seem like fun and games, a lot of what we've learned in the process has actually laid the groundwork for the research we are now undertaking, says Kelly Morrison, head of the physics department at I don't know where. It was done in the UK. Okay. The research could lead to more efficient computers or new ways to harvest energy. Researchers chose to make a violin, or at least a replica of one, to play off the world's smallest violin line used to mock whiny people, right? When let me get my violin out, right? That's what they always say when people are complaining about their problems. But it's just incredible. It's such an amazing time to be alive. All of these technologies, what does it mean for investing? What does it mean for the economy? Well, what it means is this massive amount of new prosperity that is going to be created. Look at like the more practical world. Look at Trump's sovereign wealth fund. I mean, that's really going to get more attention this summer, right? And this country and the entire world is so much wealthier than we think. Okay. You look at the debt, we got like $37 trillion in debt. We're running deficits. Yeah, that's all bad. I get it. Right. And you know me, I think that the country can really handle more debt. Okay. I'm not like a super big debt hawk. I don't think it's that bad, but it's not great either. Right. It's, we don't want to have big debts. But if they're investment grade debts, just like with our real estate, with investment grade debts, we get inflation-induced debt destruction and we get all these benefits from the debt. The debt helps us grow. It helps us become more wealthy. Well, the same is true with a country, right? As long as the debt isn't wasteful consumer type debt. Now, what would be consumer type debt? Well, frivolous welfare programs would be consumer debt, right? That's not an investment. It usually makes people less capable rather than helping them get to another stage of life when they become more capable, right? That's wasteful. There's lots of wasteful government spending. We all know that. And there's lots of corruption. And we all know that. But some debt is investment grade debt. And if the US, I'm just talking about the US now, it applies to other countries as well. But, I don't know the examples with those countries very well. But if the US had a balanced budget amendment decades ago, it would have been good in some ways because the government would have had to be more responsible. But it also would have limited the country's growth. Think of it if you had to buy all your properties with all cash, right? And you could hardly do anything. But the fact that you can get like a 5-to-1 leverage ratio helps you grow much faster. The same is true of a country. Not different. All right. Speaking of debt, I want to talk to you for a moment about bonds. Okay. Now, we know that inflation-induced debt destruction is a fantastic strategy to grow wealth with income property. And basically, becoming a leveraged buyout king or queen is what you do with your rental properties if you're following my strategy. Now, let's look at the flip side of that. Remember, every loan turns into some kind of mortgage-backed security or bond, right? And these bonds, the flip side of a bond is a loan, okay, or a debt. And bondholders are going to get just creamed, right? This whole idea of bonds being the safe asset, it is not good because inflation destroys bondholders and our future is inflationary. even if it's kind of tame right now, which it is, but we're coming off that Biden disaster of what would we have official inflation rates like 9%, real inflation rates close to 20% probably. 73% of bonds in the world are trading at less than 5% yield. Whoa, that is a disaster for those bondholders. I mean, they are just going to lose so much wealth through inflation. As a real estate investor, you employ my strategy, my trademark strategy, inflation-induced debt destruction, and you're the opposite side of that trade. So just follow my strategy and it works incredibly well. The one historically proven asset class is income property. It's the most historically proven asset class in the entire world, and it's been that way for as long as anyone's been alive. And the other side of that income property, which can also be good short term, only short term, is being that hard money lender, where you have these short term notes paying maybe 12%, 11%. Sometimes it depends on the note, with high loan to value ratios. If you want to invest in notes and you're interested in parking money for 6 months or a year, short term money, no big inflation risk there, and getting yields of as high as 12%, reach out to us, 714-820-4200, extension 2. Reach out to any of our investment counselors, and they can help you look at different note investment opportunities for short-term lending at high yields.